welcome to another episode of CRT Sound System, and we're got episode 103 now, and we're talking about Vampire Survivors. My name is Tom. I'm here with Reese, as always. Reese, how are you?
Incredible. Excited for this one.
Yeah, I was having a nice bop along to that opening track there.
It's oh god, this soundtrack is just next level.
Yeah.
How much have I listened to these songs? And it still has not gotten old. Let me see
Yeah.
how many hours I have in Vampire Survivors. 133 hours. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I don't know if I have an hour tracking of it. I know you bought it for me in Steam, and that was how I first played it when it first came out. But I then ended up getting it on Xbox because it was on Game Pass or something at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I started really just sinking time into it.
Sure.
And started achievement hunting and stuff in it. But yeah, I suppose not to reveal too much about my experience with the game. But yeah, if you want to tell people for us, Reese, what is Vampire Survivors?
Vampire Survivors is, excuse me 1 second. Sorry. Let me start over. Vampire Survivors is its own genre of game that I've heard called Bullet Heaven to some people's rage, where it's sort of a reverse shmup. I've also heard it called,
Yeah.
where you're a dude and it's Castlevania themed, and you basically the dude that you choose has a particular weapon, like cross, the Bibles, they circle around you in sort of these charming pixel graphics. And every time you level up, you make a decision where you're being like, oh, I more attack speed, more strength. I want to get an extra book for the Bibles that surround me. And sort of it's just this ramping experience where you're just fighting these massive horde of dudes, and trying to stay ahead of the curve so you're not overwhelmed by them. And then of course the real fun comes when you break the game and find combos that just absolutely crush anything and everything. And you could barely see the screen because everything is so large and flashing so brightly. And the game kind of expects you to do this and has a couple little tricks up its sleeve so you can it responds to that, which is really fun. And so I don't know, it's I would say sort of the hallmarks of it are the sort of the pick three gameplay and just sort of the hordes of dudes coming on you, and you're constantly just getting a bigger and bigger arsenal, kind of working towards your build of oh, I want really big axes, or I want everything I shoot to have ×7 bullets, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's you play it for 30 minutes or 15 minutes for a round, and you get some unlocks, and you're just chasing the unlocks and then the achievements and then sort of all the other stuff forever.
Yeah.
And they've released so many DLCs also, so it's sort of I have 133 hours, and the first half of the game in DLCs, I've got a lot of stuff unlocked, and the sort of the Contra DLC and the Castlevania proper DLC, I have nothing unlocked.
Yeah, I've bought most of the DLCs, if not all of them at this point, but yeah, I still have to go back and finish the Castlevania and the Contra and one or two of the main ones, but that, yeah, just the initial sort of that just the first version of the game was sort of when I really got super into it. Yeah, just that it was such a at the time it was just completely exploded. Obviously, I think if anybody who remembers when it came out, it was just this sort of took over the internet for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
People posting their strats to fucking to break the game, and the game expects you to break it. It's one of those sort of things where but I think just one of the really clever things about it is the way it ramps you. When you start off the game, it's quite slow, and you have you'll very rarely survive the first 5 minutes, let alone get to 15 minutes. But as you just sort of start unlocking stuff and sort of figuring out how to move around, and like how each of the weapons work, and then like which weapons you want to pair with other weapons as well. Like that sort of becomes like your build, as much as it's randomized to a degree. Like the fact that you have different builds that you can go for sort of gives you things to aim for, and then you're like, oh, I didn't get this particular one that I was looking for, so I sort of had to compromise and make a slightly less optimized build. But then you're able to figure out the ways that the sort of weapons interact with each other. Is a really, really cool aspect of it.
Like weapons and power-ups can kind of like combo into like much more powerful versions of themselves. Which also like unlocks, like, since you're combining two things together, it unlocks another slot for another weapon.
Yeah.
So you have like, like, oh, I get a really powerful weapon and like I get to add something to my arsenal. And part of like the unlocks as well is stuff like rerolls and like item bans. So you can be like, oh, I'm doing this or that playthrough, I can re-roll till I find what I want. I can ban the stuff I don't need to smooth that progression. And it goes, and I find it is incredibly well balanced. And I've come to really appreciate the balance of, the way you start out so small in like a fresh game, and the way your sort of like power-ups in the game and between games ramps up really, really goes well. And I really appreciated having played a lot of these other bullet-having games that don't have that kind of like pitch perfect application of the formula, and just being like, I've played this game for like 7 hours and it just feels like, I'm unlocking stuff. I'm doing the exact same stuff I'm doing in Vampire Survivors, and it feels like shit. I just want to play Vampire Survivors.
Yeah, I do remember a lot of the sort of the rush to make your Vampire Survivor likes after it came out, and not all of them turned out quite well. I do remember you at the time trying a few of them out and just not being impressed with them.
I can't help but keep trying them, and I don't think they're like there's one called like Soulstone Survivors that is just so full of stuff that it kind of works. There's a charm to it, but most of them I feel like just don't know how to make a good one.
No, there's definitely like there's some magic in this one, that it's like the way that whatever way they've done to balance it, or
I would argue the real magic is the soundtrack. Nothing bangs half as hard in any of the other games as the Vampire Survivors OST. And like with the other ones, like I was playing Terratech Legion, which is one of these, but they're like a car is its thing, and like every time you level up, you like you put something on your 3D model, and if you put like like an HP regen module in front of the gun, it understands that like, oh, your gun is blocked, you can't shoot anymore, you have to design your car. And like the car design stuff is really fun, but then it's sort of like, okay, I'm just back in this Vampire Survivors stuff, driving now. I'm not I still just want to play Vampire Survivors. but I don't know, that's kind of my thesis for this is I'm not going to say the soundtrack was solely responsible for creating the genre of bullet heavens, but I think that I do think that statement is more true than not true.
Yeah. Like the soundtrack, I do think, like we talk about it a lot on the show, but just how like it does really push it to a next level that just in concert with everything else about the game, that it just really just takes it from being an excellent game to being like an all-timer. Just like, because there's a rhythm to the gameplay, like I suppose we didn't really explain it, but just like you choose weapons, but they attack automatically, and they have their own sort of like attack patterns and radiuses and stuff like that, so you sort of have to account for that as you move around the map. But like because of that, like when you're in the stages, there is that's just sort of like rhythm to it, that that a lot of the time the music sort of is, because it's quite fast paced and everything, it just like it really adds to that element of it. And then once you start, like as you're really ramping up and like getting past the 15-minute mark on certain levels, and you've got like 5 or 6 fully upgraded weapons and a couple that need to get there, and they are just shitting out bullets constantly. And like the screen is completely full of enemies, and like this you've just got this like this pumping music that is just getting you going, and you're just like in a trance. And yeah, it is just pure gaming at a certain point. Like
yeah. Well, I think that's a great point. That I think is the core aspect of it that I forgot to mention, which is the passivity to it, because all you're doing is uh, moving and choosing when you level up, and
yeah.
sort of like there's a little bit of strategy to making sure like you pick up power ups at the right time. That can matter
Mm,
occasionally, but really it's an incredibly passive game,
yeah.
which is why I think a lot of these also rans don't feel nearly as good. Um, is that sort of like if you fuck up a Vampire Survivor, like a bullet heaven, you're just like, I'm not doing anything. I'm just walking around, and I regret purchasing this.
Yeah, it is a funny thing that like there are sort of states you can get to in the game where like if you've got the right combination of things, you cannot die. Um, and like the game tries to stop that from happening. Like once you get to a certain point, you get like the Reapers that start coming out, and like if you kill enough Reapers, you just basically just keep spawning these Reapers, which have like the most HP of anything in the game. But like there are ways to just ensure that you will not die to those as well, just by like locking out the game. And like that's a really
Yeah.
cool aspect to it. Like, but it did happen to me once where I just sort of had to quit after like an hour and a half of one run, where I was just like, I can't wait to die any longer. I just need
Yeah.
to.
Eventually, the game will be like enough and kill you, but uh,
Yeah.
it can take a while to get there if you build right. And I
Yeah.
think that like when you get to the levels they released, there's the ramp up starts being harder than the
Yeah.
original level, so it's much harder to achieve that
Yeah.
state. But
Yeah,
yeah,
this is like in the regular Inlaid Library that I was doing this, where like
exactly.
there was a position you could get into if you had the bouncing gems, where like they would just constantly be bouncing around you because you'd like put yourself into a corner, and like it couldn't do enough damage to you quickly enough for it to ever matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like it was really just to sort of get to see how far I could go with it more than anything else. But in the end, I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna have to just quit this run because I can't die.
Well,
um,
it's sort of like it's postul. I it I don't know what video essays I'm stealing this from, but sort of like the two sort of like game mechanics that butt heads in kind of like gaming as we know it is either shooting a gun or making a decision. And
mm,
Vampire Survivors postulates that making a decision is much more important than shooting a gun.
yeah,
And sort of like and that's just because it's like you're just like giving orders to your build. You're just like, oh, add amount +1 to that Bible, please. So
yeah,
to that diamond, so it'll
yeah,
spin through even faster. Make my bullets go twice as fast, please.
yeah,
So
yeah. It's
yeah,
build crafting is sort of the yeah.
and
Um,
then you just kind of like enjoy. And as they released the DLC too, there started being a lot more like go around the levels and find things and do things
mm,
to get more unlocks. Which and you're supposed
yeah,
to kind of like they give you like little puzzles, like oh you gotta go through the library to do this, and then interact with the mirror to do this, and that's how you
yeah,
unlock this new kind of throwing star or whatever.
yeah,
Um, and that's definitely fun, but sort of the core of it is this like just really just passive thing. Like it's very easy to just kind of like for a lot of my runs, especially when I was doing the kind of like late game achievement hunting and stuff, I would get to a point at like minute 21, like 2/3 of the way through a standard run, and just being like, okay, I'm just strong enough now. I can just like I set it to make auto decisions, level up automatically, and I
mm.
just put it down and start watching an episode of The Sopranos or something.
Yeah, there's definitely that sort of idle aspect to it that is hard to avoid, but it's like, yeah, it does, yeah, just for whatever reason, it really hits all the right sort of dopamine triggers in your brain. And yeah, I think just like once you sort of have that sort of the building of your character sort of figured out, then yeah, I think it becomes a little bit. There are points in the game where you can just sort of shut off and just wait for the next sort of decision point to actually happen. But yeah, I suppose, yeah, when they started adding more stuff, it did become to a point where exploring the maps was meaningful. Just adding more interesting things to do, or even just like they put like items and stuff really far away. So then you could sort of like plan your build around reaching a certain item, so that you could get that item, and then that would maybe add to what you had, or maybe it combined with something you picked up earlier and stuff like that. So like certain stages would sort of give you combination items or passive items that you could use with your weapons. So like depending on the stage you were on, you might want to choose different weapons and stuff. And like that's sort of cool because it sort of prevents you from just like constantly going down the same routes, because it's easier to just pick the Holy Bible every time, because that just rips through enemies. All right, I think we'll jump into the first block of tracks here. So I have 4 tracks, all from the normal mode versions of the stages. So we have Reincarnated Echoes, which is the Inlaid Library, Iron Green Intent, or Copper Green Intent in some versions of the game apparently, which is from the Dairy Plant, Gaze Up at the Stars, which is from Gallo Tower, and Unholy Invocation from the Bone Zone.
Hell yes.
One thing that I really sort of like you mentioned it at the start is just the very very obvious Castlevania influence throughout the whole
Oh,
game.
yeah.
Like it's not even trying to hide it as well. Like it's not like one of those things where it's just like no, this is this. There's times where it just looks like sprite rips from Castlevania games, and they're obviously not. But like, just
Mhm.
they're so just like all the weapons are sort of like classic Castlevania weapons. The character designs, the characters, sort of the archetypes of the characters are all very much based on sort of sort of Castlevania characters over the years, and like the music does that too. Like there's it's got that sort of baroque sort of thumping rock dance, like whatever they've got going on in Castlevania, they've got that going on in spades here too.
Yeah, yeah. What if the whole game was Bloody Tears?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
I feel like it's very similar with the music. I think during the second song we listened to, it kind of starts and it's just pulling like a very recognizable little riff kind of like right at the start, and then it goes into
Yeah.
its own thing, but it's just like, yeah, whatever, just sort of like Castlevania rocks. They're not making another one. I mean, they I would say Vampire Survivors certainly helped a little bit in getting Castlevania back on the map. Um, and so I don't know. It's really fun. It's really funny.
Yeah.
How it impacts things.
Yeah.
Um, Tom, can you tell me about how they kind of do the jukebox and kind of music organization stuff? Because it can almost be a little overwhelming that like each version of the song has like two remixes, three make remixes, something like that.
Yeah, I don't actually know, to be quite honest with you. I've never sort of dug too deeply into it because I was always just happy to let the game just play whatever it was playing for me.
Hmm.
But like it's a thing you can unlock later in the game where there's like the music banger or something like that, I think it's called.
Yeah, yeah.
Where you can just sort of select your own music, and then there's a bunch of variations on the themes for it, and then there's like different versions, as in like different release numbers have different versions of tracks for the different stages as well, and they sort of moved a couple around as well. Um, but
There's
yeah.
yeah, basically that like depending on whatever modifiers that you have, like each version of the song has like a hyper mode and a Forsaken mode, which
Yeah.
increases sort of the tempo and the pitch, and I feel like could be really superfluous or like not sound great, but they're all fucking incredible. I don't
Yeah.
know how it that happened, and I think in the later DLCs they sort of like expand that by making some of the songs more retro, or they're like synth wave or something like that to
Yeah,
sort of
there's a
like
bit of that to the
further
later
adjust the
ones. Yeah.
tone. And so it really helps with the replayability of everything.
Yeah. And
To be able
again, like
to
because you've got that faster tempo of gameplay, it does need the faster tempo of the music. But they do something to it. I'm assuming they just do some pitch adjustments, and I don't know if it's like an automated, not maybe not an automated thing, but I don't know if it's like they just like click a button and it happens, or if they re-recorded them to be like at a different key. And
Mhm.
in the faster tempos, I'm not sure how it was actually done. Like if it's like a procedural thing that's done in the game, or if it's just the music. Because the soundtracks just have the originals. So like all those we're going to be listening to are the originals, but I'm not too sure how they actually do it in the game itself, like as a technology.
Yeah,
Um,
neither one of us are musicians, as is the number one complaint about the podcast. But
it's
I do. It's
the
very
single
clearly.
complaint we've ever received, frankly.
Yes, shout out to the only crash out in the Discord that we've had. The Anyway, moving on. It does feel very shaped, is my point.
Mm,
And it feels like, and they're usually they're kind of automatically applied depending on the modifiers, because you can have
mm,
like a hyper mode which basically just makes the game go twice as fast. I think that's the hyper mode. And
Yeah.
then there's like a hard mode that just kind of makes everything go faster and is more intense, but quite isn't that same just speed go up mode. And so it's a little confusing at first, but you unlock the stuff like step by step, and usually it has a suggestion for you, just being like, "You're on hyper mode. Here's the hyper mode of the song," and you're like, "Yeah, this is awesome." But it's like cool to go back. It's always cool to explore. And as you go on, it's kind of like you can start like picking out the versions you want, listening to any version, any song, and any stage with the music banger. And it's really fun to do that too.
Yeah, like it's just the level of customization to like how you approach any level that it gets to once you've unlocked everything. Like there's so many modifiers you can put on your runs, and like you can add sort of stuff to make it more difficult. You can add, like, one of my favorite ones to do is the like when you start unlocking the cards. So like there's a whole tarot system where you unlock cards, and they like are basically just modifiers to the gameplay. One of my favorite ones is the ones where you don't pick up any weapons or XP, but all of your gem pickups are explosive. So basically, when you try and pick up a gem, it like shoots them back out at enemies, and makes them explosive. And like that's the only way you can attack. That is one of my favorite ways to do it. If you can if you can get the right modifiers going on it, it just destroys everything. It's just it's a really fun way to do it.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like it's worth mentioning as well in all of this that there are dedicated Contra, and eventually they just get permission to have like a Castlevania DLC.
Yeah.
And so Bloody Tears is in this game. It's not on this track because we're doing the original ones.
Yeah.
But it's not on this playlist rather. But it's so funny that when the Ode to Castlevania came out, and they're just like, oh, they just straight up put Bloody Tears in there.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta. It would be rude not to.
Of course, no, it's perfect. It's the culmination of the game. I never really doubted it, but when the Among Us expansion came out, I was a little bit like, well, we'll see. We'll see where this goes from here, but maybe we're done with Vampire Survivors. And then they just released like the two best DLCs by far for the game. And so,
oh, really? I haven't played that one actually. So,
I mean, it's like they really start reaching, and just like adding it's so funny adding the Contra guns after so long, where you're just like, I just have the spread shot from my favorite Nintendo game. And I mean, it just works really well. It dovetails really well, and I think they kept going weirder and weirder for the DLCs, and then for like the Contra and Castlevania ones, they just had like a bunch of kind of like really cool extra weapons and sort of like these big expansive stages, which had the most going on with them, and just this incredible extra music additions, because it's also like, with the DLC, the remixes and inverse modes and such still apply. So it's cool to keep playing Vampire Survivors, which is not always the case with DLCs.
Yeah, it's nice when you occasionally see it, and I suppose one of the other ones you see it is with when they did the Legend of Zelda Necrodancer game, and they've got like a bunch of like big indie like musicians like Gypsel and Jake Hoffman to come in and do like their versions of like official versions, remixes of like Zelda tracks, and like that was like that must have been such a cool thing for people to do. And like, say what you will about Nintendo as a shitty company, they are very shitty, but like that kind of stuff when they sort of lean into it, when you're just like, when they lean into the history of it, when they go like, oh yeah, here's an indie developer and they're doing something cool and we want to sort of support that, like that is really cool. Whatever else about it, but like,
no, I mean, like when Nintendo discovered Toby Fox, that was
oh my god, yeah,
that was crazy, dog. So
His Pokemon tracks are so fucking good. Like I need him to do an entire Pokemon soundtrack. Like the ones he did for Sword and Shield are just insanely good. I love them so much.
That's something I got to explore. I
Yeah.
still there's still like a rattling I don't know, jar in my closet labeled Toby Fox that that I have to open and destroy my whole life because I'm not super familiar with him beyond like things. But of course, like I played Undertale and that's basically it.
Yeah. I
And
mean, we joke about Undertale on the pod a lot, and we will eventually have to get around to doing it. But because I haven't played it, but I love the soundtrack. I think the soundtrack is really really good.
yeah, yeah.
I just feel like it's one of those things where I'd be like, oh no, I'm in trouble once I start
Yeah,
playing
exactly.
it.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
it's sort of like just more so than anything else, I'm most interested in Toby Fox, the musician. So,
Absolutely.
um,
Yeah, he's really, really good. I suppose speaking of musicians, we should actually talk about the musicians who worked on the soundtrack because we haven't really
absolutely,
mentioned them.
absolutely.
For the last block and the next block, all the tracks were done by Daniele Zandara, who's an Italian composer, and the other composer, Filippo Vicarelli or Vicarelli, I'm not too sure, is also Italian. I'm assuming the studio Poncle that they are based in Italy. I'm not too sure, but just based on the fact that both of the composers are Italian, I would have to assume so. Neither of them, at least according to VGMDB, appear to have done many other games, at least ones that have had official soundtrack releases. Um, but both of them seem to have done work on the Vampire Crawler soundtrack, which was that came out earlier this year, I think. Was that last year that game came out?
No, that came out a couple months ago.
Couple months ago. I still haven't, as I mentioned before we were recording, I still haven't played it. It just doesn't seem my vibe, but I will have to check out the soundtrack because I'm imagining that it is pretty fucking good.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely so much of Vampire Crawlers is pulling straight from Vampire Survivors, which is kind of why they were able to make such a robust card game. For whatever else I have to say, it is a robust card game. Uh,
Yeah.
so so yeah. Everything in the game has like everybody, all the different characters you can choose have Italian names, and it seems like only a
Mm.
little bit, like a bit like an American game calls a character Giuseppe. It's a joke, but I don't think it's a joke when Vampire Survivors does it.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a sense that they're sort of they're playing off on it a little bit. um, but yeah, like pretty much all the characters have like some sort of punny Italian name, which is pretty funny. Um, and like how many characters are in the game at this point? Because I think when I last played it, there was like 60 characters.
Certainly, each DLC adds like five more, so
Yeah.
it's tough to even tell at this point. Like, you, it's crazy to have played this game as long as I have, and to open up the characters and have like a third of them still locked. You're just like, okay,
Yeah. And that's before you sort of like the ones that you sort of the secret characters that you'll then unlock later, that you'll only sort of see either you can like unlock them like by doing special conditions in the game, or there's like some of them are like sort of quests that you can do, and others you just unlock by putting a code into the code menu.
hmm
Um, but yeah, so 34 characters starting off, and then a bunch of secret characters. So the current count says here is a combined roster of 153 characters, uh, which is insane. And like most of them are like different because like they all have like different starting stats, different sort of weapons. Um, which will sort of again influence the builds that you want to go for depending on the character you go with. Some of them will have like additional revives, some of them will have like faster attacks, or like they'll start off with certain stats boosted and other stats reduced and stuff like that. So like your character does really affect like where you want to go with your builds. And like that's really cool because then there's just sort of there's a little bit more to it when you're starting off. There's more to your selection than just sort of going in and sort of hoping to randomly get the ones you want. So
yeah,
there's
and there's like gimmick characters, so you can
yeah
get like a big boss that only has one weapon but does 10 times the damage, stuff like
yeah
that. So
yeah,
and
and there's a chicken and
There is a chicken. I'm nodding my head. You can't see, but
yeah, I'm just
the
looking through the
Castlevania
character list here.
DLC. Sorry, I keep talking over you.
No, you're okay. Go ahead.
The Castlevania DLC added 96 characters.
Fuck me.
And all the DLCs usually have, when they add stuff, since there's a bunch of new weapons, power-ups, the new characters all start with those power-ups. It's sort of like are focused around them. So it's kind of like you're like starting anew a little bit every time, because you're like, oh, I like the emergency button Among Us build or whatever. Luckily, I have a character I could pick specifically to go down that road. And so I don't know. It makes it very you get lost in it after a certain point. Like I couldn't imagine buying this with all the DLC and
God,
settling it in, but you can play it forever.
Yeah,
which is another reason why it's tough to play other Vampire Survivors likes, is because like this game is so big.
I mean, the value proposition of this game is ridiculous, because it's like a $5, isn't it? On it, just before you start adding DLC, it's like five quid. It's not that expensive, is it?
Yeah, $5.
That's ridiculous. And like, yeah, you're probably talking like what, $2-3 for the DLCs, then like, so
yeah,
like
I think that
all in for everything, you're probably spending $25-30 at most.
Yeah, and like 4 of those 3-4 of the DLCs are free. And like the only one, it's like the Castlevania one is $4.
Yeah.
Other than that, they're all like $2.
That's ridiculous. Jesus Christ. Yeah, if you haven't played it and you're interested, like it is not a big investment, and if you get into it, which is very easy to do, like this game can sort of become a bit of an obsession. Like I had a point where I was playing it, and I was just like, I would just finish work at like 1 a.m. and just go downstairs and just like zone out for an hour and a half playing it before I went to sleep. Like it was, yeah, because I would just get stoned and just let this game wash over me, and it is a very good game to play when you're stoned. It's also a very good game to play when you're sober, but just like it asks so little for you, and it rewards you so much in terms of just blasting shit into your face.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I wanted to be a bit of a bummer here for a second. I apologize, but when my mom passed away, this was the only game I could play. Like everything else asked too much of me. Yeah. But I could just sit and level up my whip and barely move around and listen to the music, and that was so perfect for it. It's really like the lowest barrier, and it's like incredible on Steam Deck, stuff like that. Any way you could, if you can play it portably, very easy. It's like out for every possible console, runs great on every possible console, which I would say is not an automatic given, because it sometimes it's one of those things where, like, since the graphics are so stripped out, like it makes up for that by having, like, you're just like, there's like
so many 700,000.
Yeah, there's 700 sprites on screen right now. I know that's not necessarily no CPU baggage right now. But
and then like there's a bunch of particle effects on all of your weapons and stuff like that. Like once your weapons are all leveled up, like if you've got 8 to 10 weapons, which you can easily, if you're sort of building right, like the amount of stuff that's on screen is it is visually dense. And it can be hard to make out what's going on, but at that point you're just like powering through enemies anyway. It does not matter. But like, yeah, it could definitely be something that you could easily find a system struggling with, and those, and like I even know that like earlier builds on the Xbox would crash quite a lot. I think they fixed it a bit, but it did crash quite a lot early on. If you paused the game while there was too much going on, it would not unpause for you, and you would just have to just like completely shut it off and restart the game from just like reboot the game entirely. So like yeah, they sorted out a lot of that, but yeah, it is definitely more technically demanding than you'd think from just looking at the relatively simple graphics that are in it. Right. I think with that, we'll jump into the next block of tracks. So I've got 5 here from Daniele Zandara. We've got these are all character themes. So I have Red and Blue, which is Pugnala Provola's track. I have Gatti, which is Amari, Giovanna, Grana, and O Sole Meeo is their track. Then I have Peji 18, which is Concetta, Caciotta. I love these silly names. we mentioned that earlier, but yeah. And then we've got Moms Are Tough, which is Zi'Assunta, Belpaese, and Extinguished Flames, which is the boss theme for Avatar Infernas. was much calmer for a boss theme for sure.
Absolutely.
Had a bit of a Dark Souls ending, like the last boss of Dark Souls kind of vibe, where you just get this. You have a boss, but it's just got a sad theme, and yeah.
Absolutely, just the sad Pope. Phase 2. No, we were looking at Daniele Zandara's further works in the break there, and I am just so delighted by the fact that he was doing, like, he was a freelance composer doing, I'm sure Daniel wouldn't like me saying this, but some of the worst dog shit imaginable. Where I'm sure that the best thing about stuff like Lep World Z is his soundtrack. I'm sure everyone is a banger. But really kind of just like this very young guy plucked from obscurity, just like the talent shining through, and just being like, all right, now you're a musician getting kind of spoken of in the same breath as sort of like all the greatest names of today. Like, the included in the celebration of video games, along with like some sort of compilation along with Nobu Umetsu is Daniele Zandara. So I love that for him. It's so exciting and well worth it. Like every single one of these is a banger and really exciting.
Yeah, I mean we've talked a lot of sugar about this soundtrack, and like it's just like just the fact that, as you say, that this guy who's obviously very very talented, but sort of was maybe stuck doing not the best sort of freelance style work. And like now I was looking at his SoundCloud, and I'm like, I need to just, after this episode, maybe just do a bit of a dig into the SoundCloud and see what's actually good in there, because like a lot of these indie composers, like you see it a lot with even people like Jake Kaufman, who've been doing this for years and years, where like a lot of the games that they worked on were not good games, but oh boy, was it really good.
I mean, work is work, and they're not. It's not their job to make the game good. It's their job to make great music. And I guess that's kind of like a lesson on why when especially in this gig space, until we have our perfect communism, where everybody is a star. I don't know where I'm going with that analogy, but just that you do your best work and it gets recognized, and you just get put up there, and it's not even necessarily the fame. It's just like so exciting to just see this young guy, like looking at his Instagram, and there's like maybe 12 posts, like most of them before Vampire Survivors came out, and like right before it came out he just got married. Like it's just like nice to just be like, oh, this guy's not necessarily set for life, but this guy can be a working musician forever, more or less.
He's now got a reputation that sort of like will precede him. And
absolutely. Like, I mean, can you imagine how cool it is to see that the company that you do freelance for is doing like an LP that's like mostly your work, along with the other composer we're about to talk with, but still just be like, that's my LP, and it's just like, I want to buy it. A zillion people are going to buy that. Next year it's probably going to be one of the incentives for games done quick, shit like that. It's awesome.
It's fantastic. And I mean, like, it is such a great thing about how sort of the way that we consume video game music has changed so much in the last few years as well. Just with like with streaming and stuff, but also just like Bandcamp, like makes it so much easier to get a hold of video game soundtracks. I'm sure I've talked about it before, but like back in 2010 or so, like I remember buying the Super Meat Boy soundtrack off Bandcamp, and like I have a signed copy of that soundtrack sitting right next to me here, because I was able to just write in the thing to Danny B, just be like, hey, can you sign this before you send it out? And he did it for me, and it was cool. Just like I'd like just that sort of at that level of access to video game sort of music, starting back then was great, and just has gotten better and better. And like, now you've got like people who are making indie games are now able to release like full vinyl soundtracks, and there are entire boutique labels dedicated essentially just to releasing like video game music, and specifically indie video game music, on physical media. And like, because of that, then it sort of allows it to be accessible on digital platforms. And obviously there are issues with digital platforms, but like the accessibility of music is something that I think is incredibly like important. I wish stuff like Bandcamp was a little bit easier to use like day to day without being at a computer, to be honest. But like, that's a problem for other things. But like, it's just the general availability and accessibility of video game music to people who might not have the sort of the skills or the wherewithal, or just like the patience to deal with like going onto a torrent site, or finding something on Zophar's domain, or like going to FF Shrine or whatever like you used to have to do in the old days to get your hands on video game music.
Oh, you sent me to another nostalgic planet by dropping Zophar's domain. Forgot about that one.
I still go there finding music for stuff. Like when I struggle to find a soundtrack, that is one of the first places I'll check, because like he'll often have like maybe not in like lossless quality, but like they'll certainly have like a rip of it that you can access and download, and at least have something to play on the sound on the podcast. Even like the last episode, when I was trying to find some tracks for like the micro PC versions of the Valis games. I eventually found the actual soundtrack, but I struggled to find the soundtrack for some of them initially. So just for while we were listening in the show, I edited them so that it had the full versions later. But the ones we listened to were just from from rips that we'd gotten. But like, just being able to access those was very handy. But like, that required me to actually do a bit of work. Whereas if I had...
So far, come on the pod. Let's talk about your favorite.
Got to talk about your domain. Yeah, absolutely. Like that's a website like that I've been going to since, I'm gonna be like, it's got to be 1999, 2000 when I started going to that website. Like, I'm sure you probably around the same for you. Like, that is
that sounds about right. Back when there was no. You were like so grateful. You're like, I can't believe Zophar is a whole domain dedicated to my interests. Finally,
get all your ROMs and everything. Just make sure you delete them after 24 hours.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the
golden rule. If you look at his Patreon, it's sort of like the number one selling point is like keeping a piece of history alive.
Yeah.
So I totally get it, and I'm with you. I think, to me, like, I'm one of those people that almost exclusively listens to video game music. I've got my it's not for any particular reason other than sort of like I'm just more attuned to the medium of video games than I am of music, and want to be a part of that medium, and to have like this aspect that is so much more accessible, because games are increasingly fraught. It's so weird to engage with games in 2026. And the time investment, and to be able to be like, I do not have the fucking time to play Final Fantasy X, but I want to be in Final Fantasy X. Let's pop on that soundtrack. It's really special to me, and sort of like something I'm honestly like a little addicted to, where it's like, I would love to check out bands that sound like Rilo Kiley and expand my thing. But I just told I don't know. It's not video game music, so I don't have that extra layer to it that I find so cool and addictive about this other stuff. And like, sometimes, when other people are like, "Oh, what music are you into?" and I'm just sort of like, I mostly listen to video game music. I have a podcast, and they're like, "Oh, that's cool. I like Mario. I like Dark Souls." But I feel like you can say that with a straight face now. You used to not be able to. And I don't know. It's just all to say, this accessibility, this sort of like, this facet of video games being so an aspect you can connect with, because there's nothing better. Like, I highly recommend finding a game that you never want to play and just looking on, Apple Music or whatever for the soundtrack and just listening to it and just imagining what it might be. It's like it's I don't know. I find it so cool, so engaging.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things, like you say, that like maybe not everybody will be cool to listen to video game music, but it's becoming a thing now where like it is an understandable, like people get that it is a thing that people listen to. So like you could say, oh, I listen to video game music, and maybe they might, it's no different than saying I'm really into like hardcore D&B or whatever. Whereas like even if somebody who doesn't listen to it, they'll sort of they'll get where you're coming from with it. And like certainly like the level of engagement that you can have with the video game soundtrack is increased because of that sort of that there is an entire game connected to a soundtrack. And regardless of whether you ever play that game, like there is it's hard to describe. Like you have that just like the idea of being able to sort of imagine a game as you're listening to the soundtrack is very, very interesting. Like I definitely experience it the same way to you as you have done, but like I don't know if I could describe it properly. Like it is a bit of a weird, like when I listen to just like go onto one of my playlists where I've just got like a bunch of PC 98 soundtracks of like insane Japanese games that I'm never ever going to play, that are like completely inscrutable to me if I ever did try to play them, that they've never been translated or whatever. Like, but like they, you can just sort of go along with the vibes. You can maybe even watch like a long play of them and just sort of get into the whole vibe of a game without ever sort of experiencing it as an actual game. And that's kind of interesting, and that's kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's certainly, it's so much fun not having these value judgments attached with it, where you're just sort of like, I love this group of stuff. I love what this is doing to me emotionally. And it's sort of like, and it's no different than kind of just like the emotional responses that you could have to any music. I don't know, it's just very special to me. And I know it's sort of like, it's so much of it is rooted in my nerd childhood and nostalgia, but just being able to connect with video games a little bit more when it's difficult to is really what works to me. And sort of like, I think a big part of what was the foundation of this pod was us talking about it and just being like, this stuff is so sick. Just being able to share our feelings and to have them reciprocated is so cool. And sort of like, I think early on we discussed that, it's not, we don't necessarily aren't going to flip out about any criticisms or anything like that, but sort of like, this is a podcast that's about listening to music we love. It's not, we're not going to be like, we're time to put up the radiogram and give this to Dark Souls 8 7 out of 10. It's just like everything's a 10 out of 10 banger. Some things are just more 10 out of 10 than others.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's go on to the next block of tracks. So the next two are all tracks by Filippo Vicarelli or Vicarelli. Again, not too sure which it is. So most of these are from the inverse mode and from bonus stages. I don't know how they sort of like. I would like to find out maybe one day, because I've had a look on their socials and stuff like that. There isn't a lot of like interviews, unfortunately, with them, but like how they arrange these soundtracks as far as like putting them together in the game and stuff like that. I would be interested to find out. Maybe I'll see if I can just send somebody a DM to annoy them, to be like, hey, how did this come together? Yeah, because like the two soundtracks sort of seem to be pretty evenly split between Daniele and Filippo's music. But yeah, so the inverse mode for Mad Forest, we have Forest Night Fever, then Libro Inferno, which is the inverse mode of Inlaid Library. It's Raining Minotaurs, which is the inverse mode of Dairy Plant, and I'm Every Reaper, which I really hope is a reference to that Shaka Khan, or not Shaka Khan song. Is that Shaka Khan? I'm Every Woman. I'm Every Woman.
I don't know.
I'll find that out. Hold on.
Okay.
It is a Shaka Khan song, okay. I really hope it's a reference to that. If not, it definitely puts me in mind of it. But that is the Cappella Magna, which is another sort of later game stage, and that's the inverse mode before the 1.0 update, apparently.
Ooh, what a joy. What a joy just spending my Saturday afternoon with my good friend Tom, just listening to the Vampire Survivors soundtrack. I can't believe we're almost to the end. It feels
Yeah.
like this one just gone by. Oh, I got a belch. Ugh.
Yeah, this is one of the ones where I was like, will we have enough to talk about? And here we are, an hour and a half later, still like, yeah, yeah, like those tracks. I think for me, sort of, those are the tracks I always think of when I think of like the Vampire Survivors soundtrack, just because, like, it was the inverse levels where I started getting really sort of like deep into just like the bullshit of the game, just like getting into the real grognard stuff. So like
Yeah,
these are the tracks that are sort of imprinted on my brain, just because I just spent so much time sort of like figuring out my builds and stuff like that while doing the inverse levels in and just like yeah, just those just the level of like just pumping fucking music
yeah.
is hard to deny.
It's hard. It's impossible to deny.
Yeah.
Filippo Vicarelli seems to have done largely the inverse tracks. I'm not
Hmm.
quite sure how they're organized, but there's like a side A, side B, and side C, and all of side B is Filippo.
Yeah.
So I that it's interesting to me. I'm not sure how it's actually organized, but it kind of seems like Filippo is a little bit more kind of like the esoteric side stuff in the game. That's not a good way to put it, but sort of like the extra stuff. But
Yeah.
also, I think he does the first stage, so
Yeah.
it's an interesting thing, and so it's a little bit. He doesn't do quite as many tunes, but I think that they're really good at like feeling in sync. Like
Mm.
they both sound very Vampire Survivors esque, and I don't know if I
Yeah.
could if I had to take a test, I couldn't choose which ones were Filippo's and which ones are Danielle's
I
without already knowing, like from the knowledge I've gained from
yeah.
doing this podcast.
Like I
Yeah,
feel like there's definitely a distinct style for the two of them. Like you mentioned that like there's more of a synthwave style to these ones. Like there's definitely that sort of like they're more modern,
sure,
both in like composition and arrangement. But like because the other ones they're like they're more baroque. They're more sort of like classically influenced, I would say, just because they're sort of they're
sure,
the ones that I think are really trying to sort of like push the Castlevania influence on it, where it's like these ones are a little bit more modern. They're sort of they sound a little bit more like more modern like video game soundtracks and in particular indie game soundtracks. Like they've got you've got like weird little dubstep wubs going on in parts of the tracks, and there's just like there is just a little bit more modernness to it, and I feel like that's a deliberate sort of split that they wanted to do. Whereas like you've got the more traditional stuff as being the sort of the early part of the game, and then once you get to the later part of the game where shit starts to get a little bit weirder and where you start really getting into all of everything that's going on, then that's when you see that's when you get the sort of the more upbeat, the more intense music that's sort of a bit more dancey. That's I'm not sure that's entirely where they're going for with it, but that's the vibe I get from it for sure.
I think that sounds accurate to me. Especially like considering like you consider the arc of the game, and a
Mm,
lot of these tracks, you're not necessarily going to hear them like late game, but it's sort of like for most of the tracks you hear them while you've already descended into the bullshit of Vampire Survivors, and you've experienced the maximum overdrive nature of how it can get once you push it to the end of a stage, or just how it feels to be in sort of like the later game doing later stuff, and to have just you've leveled up your sort of like pre-game stats to max, and so wherever you any level you enter, you start as a golden god, that sort of feeling. um
mm,
and uh and yeah, and I think that these match that much more accurately than I think the stuff we were listening to before, which definitely has a much wider variety of tones, and
Yeah.
sometimes will want to like pull it back for a slower one or a more somber one or one that wants to kind of get over the Castlevania feel a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's easy for me to forget that this game is not always running at 700%. Um, because of where you can go. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I should mention as well. I was asking the question if there was a reference to a Shaka Khan song beforehand, but you then pointed out that all of these are references to disco songs.
It's raining Minotaurs, hallelujah.
Yeah, and I feel foolish now that you pointed out. Where did you say you found that out?
The Vampire Survivors wiki, I just
Oh, it's
looked
on the
up
wiki. Okay, interesting.
the song stuff. I looked up the
Interesting.
song that you were talking about, and I went to the overall Filippo side B's things, and they're like, these are all named after 70s, 80s songs. And I was like, you better believe it. There's the
Yeah.
first track for the next block. The final block is barely staying alive,
Yeah.
and it's just like, okay, yes, come on. That's very funny. Um, I think like Filippo is maybe a little bit more uh was a little bit more established, but kind of in the same arc as Danielle. I mean, I guess if you're a young guy in Italy, there's only so many build paths for you.
Yeah.
But I it's just sort of the same thing, just sort of like just a lot of like very small kind of like indie projects, and then just like Vampire Survivors like launches you into the stratosphere.
Hmm.
Um, and he did compose music for like Melatonin and stuff since, which is an interesting kind of chill rhythm game.
No, not
So
heard of that.
yeah, I don't know. He looking at his website is sort of like before he got really into composing and stuff. He had like a music licensing website that was
Yeah.
all sort of like buying loops and things. Uh, so it's sort of like his music could be fucking anywhere
Yeah.
at this point.
Yeah,
But
because he's got royalty-free music that you can buy. Yeah, so that's like, yeah. Um, that's a good thing that people are out there making stuff like that where people don't have to worry about constantly having to, especially for like if you're doing it for like a YouTube video or whatever where you want some music, or you're making a cheap indie game and you want to not have to worry about paying royalties to somebody forever. um and like that's a good service to offer, I think. Yeah, so like that's pretty cool.
no, and
um
yeah, and it's sound effects too, because you have to imagine
mm,
that, like, I mean, if you're making a game by yourself and sort of like maybe you're not as audio tuned, just sort of like, what do
yeah.
you want? Do you want to spend 6 months figuring out how to make a level up sound, or do you want to just get a royalty free one that no one will be able to tell the difference?
Yeah.
I don't think I would love for there to be a a royalty free sound effect that gets as big and recognizable as the pottery break or the door open creak you hear all the time.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're there yet.
Sadly. It is. Yeah, it'll get there eventually, I think, surely.
Maybe the Roblox oof.
Oh, you've summoned an evil upon the podcast now.
Uh, I mean, I feel like Tommy Talrico haunts us at all times.
Yeah, these the specter that haunts the podcast for sure.
Well, I don't know if I have a lot of. I think that's it for my insights.
Yeah.
I can repeat this game bangs. This game soundtracks bangs a couple more times. But
I think yeah, we can just jump into the last block of tracks anyway. It's a pretty short one anyway. I've just got three more. So we have Barely Staying Alive, Mighty Illusion, and You Only Happen Once. So Barely Staying Alive is from the Moonglow inverse mode. Then Mighty Illusion is from Bat Country, which is like a bonus stage where all the enemies are bats, or most of the enemies are bats. I forget the exact thing, but there's a lot of bats happening in there.
there are.
And you can't stop there. The last track then is from Astral Stair, which is like one of the last levels. I think that's how you access like the secret boss. I forget exactly, but that's a cool level.
Perfect. Another perfect episode.
Yeah, no, just again, hard to say much more about those, but fuck me, just excellent stuff all around. Just really, really love this soundtrack. Hard to say too many good things about it. There's so much more music in this game as well. Like we're definitely gonna have to revisit it. With all the DLC music and all the Castlevania music and Contra music as well, because yeah.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Yeah.
And I think too, there are probably some listeners that got super into it when it came out and did not loop back around for the DLC, which I think
Yeah.
is extremely reasonable because it's difficult to, I think, fully pitch the appeal of the DLC because it is kind of more Vampire Survivor in a way that maybe you feel like you've got your fill of, but instead never buy another Vampire Survivors like. Just get the DLC for Vampire Survivors and play that instead. Terratech Legion. I'm playing one that's called like Stand Survivors now. I mean, I'm not by playing. I tried it because it was in a bundle with Terratech Legion, and I'm just fucking sick of these subpar Survivors likes, and all I want is more Vampire Survivors. So give it a check out. I'm honest. I reinstalled it because I need to do. I haven't done a lot of the Ode to Castlevania stuff, and it does fucking bang. And I didn't realize there were so many characters. I didn't fully grasp how large it was.
Yeah. It's like if you've just done the base game and you haven't done any of the DLCs, like there's a lot of interesting stuff to actually do just as far as like progression through it, and like they make an effort to like make the DLCs, especially the later DLCs, the paid DLCs rather than the free DLCs, have like I'm not going to say like a story, but there's an arc to how you play through the stages, and there are like little mini quests and things you do within the stages to sort of to make it feel a bit more like actual progression. But like it is ultimately this, you're doing the same stuff as the original as like the original stages and stuff, but there are a few more additional wrinkles, and like it is one of those things sort of like the Elden Ring DLC where it, like it really rewards you for being fucking good at the game.
Yeah.
You know, and also punishes you for not being good at the game.
It just adds so much. It's sort of like the original Vampire Survivors had a ceiling, but with all the DLC, it really is kind of like a forever game.
Yeah.
There's just so many weapons and combinations and varieties and maps, and just sort of like you just go on forever.
Yeah.
And you know, it can feel a little samey after 133 hours, but until that point.
But what game doesn't?
Exactly. Elden Ring, that's one.
That is
that's
one.
The only
yeah. Fair. All right. Yeah, I think that'll be the end of it, Reese. Thanks so much for joining me. Have you any plugs you want to do? I think you had a recent Vigavato episode finally.
Yeah, we're really getting settling into our twice a year release schedule. But check that out. New video games are the worst thing on earth. Yeah, and that's it. No more plugs for anything else because I'm a crazy person on the internet. You don't need to check that out.
Yeah. Yeah, go follow Reese over on her Blue Sky if you do want to follow a crazy person on the internet. It is fun. As for myself, you can find me as 4push on Blue Sky. Not really anywhere else. Mostly just hang out in Discord and on Blue Sky, to be honest.
Yeah,
so
follow 4push on Blue Sky if you want an entirely reasonable father in your timeline.
Yeah, I post about dad stuff and Magic the Gathering, and that's about it, really. Yeah, come join the Discord. Links to the Discord in the show notes. Links to the Discord on my Blue Sky. On the show's Blue Sky, which you can find at CRT Sound System at .Blue Sky or .B Sky or whatever way they format their fucking usernames. You can find us on Patreon if you want to give us money just to help host the show and stuff. It's not the most expensive show to run, thankfully. I don't do like ads or anything like that, but it is nice to just have a little bit of of extra money just to put towards hosting costs and stuff like that. I'm trying to do more bonus episodes. I've got one recorded. Reese, get back on me again to release that one we've recorded, because I do need to get off my arse and finish editing that one. It doesn't take long to edit them. I'm just lazy.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough getting on your case. You're such a nice person, and you're so reasonable, and you're just like, I'm just trying to raise my family in this overheated world, and I'm just like, who am I to tell the person to edit the bonus episodes? My God, I'm a monster. But I am also a misandrist, so maybe I can pull from that.
Yeah,
to be mean to Push.
You can do that. You can do it. I believe in you. All right, yeah. So the last track we've got is another one by Daniele Zandara. It is called Vempair Survaivors, I guess, which is the Molise and credits tune. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me as always, Reese. Thank you everyone for listening. Go please, Vampire Survivors. Give yourself a nice time with it. It'll cost you $5.
Absolutely. Bye.
Have a good one.